Just bounce to this.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Brandon Clements, and welcome back to another tutorial here on Glasshand. Hey, what we're going to take a look at is actually a product shot that we have done for a company called Mi Salsa. Jose, thanks a lot for letting us actually put this out there and show other artists and help them learn too. So really cool that he allowed us to do this today. What we're going to do is jump into Cinema 4D and Octane. We're going to take a look at the scene, some of the objects, and then we're actually going to jump into Fusion, and I'm going to show you guys how to set that up and how to do some really cool stuff. So there's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so here we are in the actual scene, and you can see it's pretty basic how we've set it up. This was an actual still, so if we move around the scene, you can see it's just a couple of boards that we have placed down and a few objects, some different peppers, and just some tortilla chips and actual tomatoes and onion, and just some things here in the background to kind of fill it out. Okay, so if we jump back into our camera, I had a couple of different angles that we had set up, but we went ahead and went with this one just to kind of block this in. So let's take a look at the render settings. I'm rendering it at 3200 by 1800, and what I'm actually doing is using the render passes. So you can see my render buffer type is set to float linear, and also here we have EXR 32-bit, and we're saving all these different passes here. So we got diffuse direct, indirect, reflection direct, indirect, refraction. We have some subsurface scattering. We have our post. Went ahead and we ticked that there. Let's scroll down a little bit more here to the info passes. We have the render layer ID. I have a couple of basically mats separated out for those objects. Ambient occlusion, Z depth, all kinds of cool stuff here. So let's go ahead and fire up Octane, and we can take a look and see what the scene actually looks like at this state. And then we'll talk a little bit about the lights and how I actually lit this scene. So I've been using Hdr Light Studio a lot for our different products that we're visualizing here at Glasshand. I just find it to be a really easy tool to use, and it's very straightforward, and it allows us to create these kind of these lights that go all the way up and down the bottle. Okay, so it's kind of hard to get with area lights inside of Cinema 4D and Octane. You know, if you're actually placing them in the scene, having an HDR environment, you know, they're actually casting from this direction here, so you get it on this part of the bottle and all the way up. So it just makes it a lot easier. And let's go ahead and actually look at Hdr Light Studio and how we can use it inside of Cinema 4D and Octane. So I'm just going to create my little Octane user. Here we go. This is how I like to work most of the time. But I've also set up another one for Octane in Hdr Light Studio. So I can kind of compress my viewport here. And then what we can do is say, select the hook in the scene. And then let's go ahead and start that connection. So this is a plugin that you'll actually get with Hdr Light Studio. And it's loading up. It doesn't take but a second. And it popped up over here on my other display. So if we went and shrink this just a little bit, I'm going to try to show each of these side by side. Let's go ahead and turn off all of these except for the sky background. Okay, so the sky background is just very simple. You can actually add it over here, I believe. Yeah, right here, sky background, this button. And I've tweaked some of the settings, just added some different color. You know, the sun, we can go over and adjust all these different settings here. So I'm just going to kind of let you see what I've done here, and but of course when you tweak these, it's actually in real time as well. So if I was to bring this down, you can see the effect is immediate. So it's very, very handy to be able to use. And like I said, the tool itself allows us a little bit more flexibility to just set up an environment that we know that we want exactly. Another cool thing is let's go ahead and just select this rim right here to the left. We can actually come over into Cinema 4D, and in the plugin we can say rim, and then we actually get this little indicator, so we can select just that side of the bottle and it will move the light. Okay, so now it's actually placed a little bit more behind the bottle rather than to the side how I had it. So you have three different types of modes. Illumination is basically like casting in that direction. Reflection is really cool because I can just go ahead and select a bottle, a point on the bottle that I want the reflection to be in, And there you go. You get that straight away. So you don't have to actually fumble around the scene and just kind of position the lights how you want. It's a little bit more methodical and thought out this way. Like you can actually think about where you want the lights, how you want them to show up in the reflections, and it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so I'm just going to step back to places. Okay, so now we're back and we're just going to turn these lights back on. Here we go with the rim right, and you can see that just kind of fills out that shape just a little bit better. Now we have our actual key. You can see it's really nice and big and soft. And it helps to kind of line that up with the sun direction a little bit. We could have probably moved it over just a bit just to keep it in line with the sun there, because you get this nice really hot ping from the sun. But this, you never know what this could be. On set, this could have been a softbox or something that was, a silk that was actually placed there to be really, really big. So here's our fill coming from the left side just to help round out that shape a little bit more. The fill's kind of bright, but I wanted to keep it nice and bright, saturated, and just looking very pleasing. Okay. Now I have this other thing here. It's called dark, and basically what it is, let me show you the settings of this. It's sorry, I know the real estate here on the screen's a little bit messed up, but I'm actually using a Cintiq right now, so this is really cool. I've always wanted a Cintiq for a long time, and one of my friends, Gary Miller, hooked me up, so thanks a lot, Gary, for selling this, because I've wanted it for a long time. But anyways, this dark spot right here is cutting off the light. Okay, so we get like a very sharp indication right here, and we get to see the color of the label and the color of the salsa just kind of straight on. And you can see this a lot in product examples. If you look at a lot of different beers and just trying to think of things that are actually in bottles, mostly beers, you can see like how they cut this off with this kind of, they flag it basically. Okay, so this black flag is just kind of cutting into the softness of the lights. Okay, another good example I want to show you guys that really helps is in Hdr Light Studio. I love the fact that you can do this. Basically, you can grab the opacity ramp here, and what you're doing is creating an intense, pingy, hot, bright spot here, and you kind of fade it off, okay, as it goes out. And you can see the preview here. Now this is very hard, not very hard, but it's just kind of troublesome to do with Octane lights. Basically what you'd have to do is create a texture that's similar to this in Photoshop, and then you would have to bring it into your texture emission on the light to get something that falls off really nice and pretty like this. And it, it's just very soft looking, but you still get this very pingy hot spot right here. So you get that pretty easily. Honestly, I mean, it's no work. You just go ahead and just click the opacity ramp and you just add it in. So I really, really like that fact that you can do that. So when you're done, basically what you can do is come down here and you want to go ahead and say render production HDR, and it popped up on my other screen. So we have the resolution set, we have OpenEXR, it knows that I'm using Octane and Cinema 4D, really cool. I didn't show you the feature of adding an area light, but I'm sure we'll get into that in tutorials very soon. But this is the resolution of the actual, it will create an Octane light, and it will create the texture for that Octane light, and this is the resolution for that texture. So if you want to play around with it, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's really nothing very hard about setting this up. And then we have the actual EXR RGB, the format. We have 32-bit floating point, linear color information. This linear profile, make sure that inside of Octane and Cinema 4D, that if you go into your image texture, again, the gamma is going to be set to 1. Okay, so we're talking about color space and color profile, and you want to keep it linear. And yeah, then you just browse, and it's pretty straightforward. So I'm not going to render this out again. I just wanted to show you how to do that. And actually, when you go back, once you save that out and you go back and you actually break this connection and you say stop, you'll notice that the actual path here will change. Instead of from the temporary, this will actually automatically change to the browse location on your hard drive that you set this to. Okay, so I'm going to update this manually since I've kind of broken it. And there we go. I just fixed the path to the actual export path. Sorry, that is the 32-bit linear HDR that we rendered out from Hdr Light Studio. Okay, so what else could I talk about here in this scene? I just have some basic stuff that's kind of left over from me being messy here, but it's all very straightforward, especially if you're a Cinema 4D artist. There's nothing really tricky here. In terms of shaders, of course you guys can download the scene, so please feel free to download the scene and take a look at it if I'm not covering exactly what you want to hear in this video. But if we go to this little mortar pestle kind of thing, one of the artists here, Brad, he's done a really good job to set this up, but he kind of used this as a way in the medium to kind of fake a little bit of fill light. So basically what I mean by that is the stone is absorbing, in the SSS channel, it's absorbing some indirect light. Okay, so you get this kind of brighter bowl here. Without this, it would just kind of feel a little bit dark. And notice since we've activated all of our different render passes, we can take a look at those here inside of Octane and make sure they look exactly how we want them to. Another cool thing that I don't think I've shown in some tutorials is if you go into the render settings and you come all the way down to the info passes, you can actually adjust this Z depth value here, okay? And basically what you want is a pretty good amount of contrast in your map, and you want to be able to see this almost like a fog, right? You want this to kind of be, some of these elements to be darker up front and then brighter in the back, vice versa. However you want to set this up, you can do that there in the render settings. Here we can see my actual IDs that I've set up. I've set up 3 of them, and we can use these in post. And then here's my ambient occlusion pass, which the ambient occlusion is kind of spread out and just kind of dark all over. So what you can do is come in here to the info passes, and you can adjust this AO distance. Okay, so this really needs some help here. And if I bring this down more, you can see this is a better indication of ambient occlusion. I don't want it all the way up here. We get this like gray on the bottles. I mean, you know, to each their own, but basically in this ambient occlusion, what you want is just for this to be darking the cracks and the portions of the mesh that are the cavities, okay? So I don't want this bottle to actually be gray. I don't want that to come across in the render. And I love that you can visualize that in Octane. And of course we can look at the post and just solo this and see what the contribution is there. Okay, so overall this is basically what I've done in setting this up. You know, it's very straightforward, and this was something that we could do very, very quickly for our client. I think we finished this project with the budget and the timeline like in a day, basically. It was like a day of Brad setting up the scene and getting the models looking correct, and a day of me just coming in and doing a little bit of tweaks on lighting and texturing. Nothing too fancy, but you can see the result looks really, really nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump over into Fusion, and we're going to set up our project there, okay? So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and I'm going to render this out for us. I'm just going to change the path for everything. I don't need the Cinema 4D standard stuff to save out. What you can actually do is just use the Octane render pass, and let's just go ahead and just call this like O2, basically. So I'm going to come in here and type O2. And yeah, I think we're good. Okay, so we'll close this and we'll actually fire off another render. And yeah, you can see like just how powerful the scaling is in Octane with GPUs. It's pretty amazing. You can see the actual stats down here. So I got all 3 of those slaves, 9 GPUs on top of my 4 that's actually here in this workstation. So you can just see that time like coming out to very, very reasonable. Okay, so it's going to take around 5 minutes for this in total. And while that's going on, I'm actually answering comments on YouTube right now. So thanks a lot, guys, for all the comments and stuff. I love seeing what you guys have to say about the videos, and everyone has such great ideas on stuff too. So I wish I had the time. I wish I could be full-time doing YouTube, but again, I do client work and I also teach at a university, so somehow I found time to do YouTube every once in a while on the weekend. So I really, really appreciate you though. Okay, so we have finally written that out to disk. Let's go ahead and jump into Fusion. Okay, so here is the interface of Fusion. And I hope this will kind of serve as an introductory tutorial for those who haven't used it before. It's very straightforward. We have nodes that are listed here on the top that we can drag down into the actual view, and then we have two viewers that we have the ability to use freely. Okay, so what we can do is just actually go to our renders folder, and we can have this guy. We can just pull it in, just drop it straight in. What that will do is actually automatically create a loader node. Okay, so the loader node is basically your footage that you come in, whether it's a picture or a video, or in this case a series of pictures that is a multi-layer EXR. Okay, so first thing, let's go ahead and rename it by just hitting F2 on the keyboard. Okay, so this doesn't really help us define what it is, so we're going to go ahead and say this is going to be our diffuse direct. Okay, so all we need to do is come over here, and this is our actual inspector type window. Okay, this is where all the details are about this node that we have selected. Okay, so the everything here is pretty normal and straightforward. You can see that you can have a proxy, and you can have the actual file here, and you can switch between the two, which is really nice. So it makes it super easy. Under import, we have like the bit depth, and every other kind of little node here. So the bit depth, by default, it's always linear. Okay. So we don't actually have to say float 32. If that makes you feel a little bit better to say float 32, then go ahead. But it's straight away, like Fusion is looking at it as a linear file type. Okay, it's going to see that anyways. So let's go ahead into the format, and this is where we have our multi-layer EXR files. Okay, so here's where all the magic happens. And just to show an example for you guys, I'm going to come all the way down to the beauty, and I'm going to load in the red, green, and blue channels for the beauty. Okay, so red, green, blue, and let me just grab that alpha. Okay, and you notice we've changed it, but we don't see anything in our viewers. Okay, so you can do one or two things. It's really cool. You can left click and drag and drop it into the viewer. Okay, and then you see this little button up here. And if we actually hold Control and use our mouse wheel to zoom out, we can see that, and middle click to actually move the canvas, we can see that my beauty is actually from the ID mat. Okay, so let me just actually grab the real beauty channel. So if you notice, it actually says the mask 3, red, green, blue, and then we actually get the beauty underneath of it. That wasn't the right beauty layer. I need to actually look for, oh, where's it at? Here we go. This is the actual beauty layer. So let's go ahead and say red. And sorry, I keep losing it. Red, green, and then let me get the actual blue beauty layer. So beauty, blue, and then alpha, beauty, alpha. Okay, there we go. So now it loads up. But as you can see, let me make this a little bit bigger. As you can see, we can hit fit and pop it there. Our color space is off, and you know that didn't make sense, right? Because I told you that this is float 32. So yeah, we're actually viewing this linearly. Okay, we actually need to put a LUT on top of this to bring this gamma up to 2.2 so that our monitor can actually display this correctly. So it's very easy to come in here and do. We just need to say we need to switch this to a gamut view LUT. Okay, and then we can actually go to edit. Okay, so here's our LUT that we're going to say. Our color space, our source color space, we're not going to change, but our output we need to change to sRGB, and this is going to make the gamma 2.2. Okay, so that's just a simple way of adding a LUT to the viewport. Another way of doing this is actually coming down and grabbing a color correcting node. Okay, so if I need to hook these up, it's really easy. You can hover, and you can see that the gold is the input, and you actually have these match references, really cool, and match mask, all that nice stuff up here, and then you have the effect mask, and then you have the output. Okay, so you can always hover and see what each node has as an input, but the easiest way to do it that I find is just right click and hold and drop it right on the name, like on the middle of the node, and then you get a little nice box that comes up, and we just want to have the input. Okay, so you can memorize the colors, or you can do what I just showed you, right click from the output, which is always a red square, onto the node that you want. And then you can always left click and destroy that connection if you need to. Okay, so let's say input. And we'll come over here to the color correction node, and we'll actually go down to the gamma, and we'll say 2.2. Okay, so we won't see it update because remember these dots here are the actual display of our views. Okay, and this is invoked to be the first viewer. We can actually just deselect that and then come over to this guy and say 1 or 2, and you can actually see them both side by side. Okay, or we can just say 1, and if we need to switch this, we can say 1, 2, and then make this 2. So you can always just like come in here and view any node that is in your compositing package. Okay, any node that is in your flow, as I should say, in your actual work. So you can compare, contrast, you can make changes, you can actually come up here and you can save these changes up. So I could say on S2, I want to have the saturation all the way up. Okay, and then I can switch between those just by loading those. And you can do this with any node. You can actually save these states on any node. So you can sit here with a client and you can be like, oh, I have this look, and then I have this look and this look, and you can just load all of those changes up into your color corrector or into your actual 3D scenes. You can do full 3D inside of Fusion. I mean, there's just so many opportunities for you to make your workflow that much easier on yourself. Okay, so control, and holding down control as a modifier and rolling your mouse wheel will zoom any viewport, and then middle click will always get you around, and that's basically the gist of it in this kind of 2D view. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to load up all of these guys here for you. Basically what I'm going to do is just I'll show you an example. Okay, and you can see there's an error there, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste, Control C, Control V. It will automatically add a merge node, which is super helpful, but I'm just going to blast that out of there. And what I'm going to do is just go into here, and I'm just going to say, I hit F2 on my keyboard. I'm going to say diffuse indirect. And then I'm going to go into my actual format, and I'm going to find my diffuse indirect. So I'm going to finish all this out for us with all the passes. I'll be right back. We'll see you guys in a second. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got. We have the diffuse direct, we have diffuse indirect. I'm putting them up here in the loader, up here in the first one. Oh, it looks like I messed up here. Let's see what I did. Diffuse red. Oh, this should be green. So you can see the actual numbers. So number 9. So I'll just go to number 9, and I'll go to green, and this needs to be number 9 blue. Right there. Okay, so that looks a lot better. Let's look at the reflection. And the reflection indirect. And then the refraction. Subsurface scattering. And I can turn on my LUT if I want. And AO. Okay, AO looks pretty good. Post. And then the actual bottles mask, the table mask, and the background objects mask. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just end it there, and we're going to pick it up in the next lesson, and we're going to actually make these guys, we're going to work with all these different nodes, okay? So we're going to combine everything together. We're going to actually go into some 3D, some kind of camera techniques. Basically, we're going to set a car to the background, and we're going to move that camera back, do some different mask stuff. And I'm going to show you how I actually came together for the final project and actually made it look really nice. So we're going to talk about everything in Fusion and more compositing techniques in the next one. So I hope you guys really like this one. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If this is your first time viewing, hello. Definitely subscribe to the channel and check out all the different stuff we have on the channel. Give this video a like if you actually liked it, and if you didn't, comment below and tell me why. Or if you have a question, please leave it in the comment section below. So really appreciate you guys. We're gonna actually give all this stuff to you guys to download for free on Gumroad, but if you feel the need to actually invest a little bit and you thought it was worth it and you learned something, definitely buy me a cup of coffee. I appreciate that, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So take care. Thank you.